Hello everyone, I'm John Evans. Welcome to another episode of One-on-One. Actually, it's the final episode in our third season of this podcast, and it just may be the best one we've had so far. We've had several emotional interviews, a lot of fun with our interviews, getting to know some of the people who've made headlines across southeastern North Carolina. We're going to feature highlights from several of the episodes that we've had this year, and if you like what you hear from these snippets, you can find these episodes and our previous seasons available for free downloads wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. Early in the year, I talked with Maureen O'Boyle. Now, Maureen has told a lot of stories in her broadcasting career, both as the anchor of the nationally syndicated shows A Current Affair and Inside Edition, and also as a news anchor, where she is now at WBTV in Charlotte. But by telling her own story as a survivor of sexual assault, Maureen has helped a countless number of victims recover from their own traumatic experiences.
I had been stalked over a year by somebody who had been breaking into my home and actually living in among my things while I was at work every day. So I had that 3 a.m. to 5:30, 6 p.m. shift in Macon.
Yeah.
And this stalker I didn't even know was in my apartment every day. I would say to people, my coffee mug has moved, or, I can't find something. And they'd say, oh, this is the shift. The shift makes people so tired. You're just abnormal. Everyone's abnormal. So when the assault happened, when I was woken up by James Starling, who's in prison, and he told me he was going to kill me, at that very moment, I'll tell you exactly what I thought. And this is where my faith has always been based on the way God has always been with me, is that at that very moment, I could feel the words coming through from me. They were not my words. And I said, "You will not kill me. I will not die here. My nephew was born 3 days ago. There is no way you will kill me." And it completely threw him off guard, because he had everything there to kill me. He had an array of weapons and all kinds of luggage to pack me in. He was going to put me all over the county so nobody could find me. And I know I did not have that ability to come up with that in that very moment. I know it was God. And I screamed, of course, before those words came out of my mouth. I shrieked. I don't even think it was an audible scream. There's a scream that can happen, and if anybody's watching who's been through a traumatic experience, even a car crash, sometimes you think you scream, but nothing is coming out.
Yeah.
Because my neighbors later told me they never heard the screams. But the only reason why I ever went public is I really never had intended to be honest with you, because I was single. I was 24 years old at the time I got my first national TV show, and someone outed the story. They sold it to one of the tabloids.
Really?
And I had been in the ladies' room of the office building that we housed our show in, and I was crying to someone saying it's the anniversary of this bad thing that happened to me, and it's always it's a hard day for me. And she said, "What was it? What happened?" And I told her, and I didn't know someone else was in the ladies' room at the time. And that person then sold the story. So, and as bad as that sounds, that was also God's work, because God completely knew that by the story coming out, it would force me, one, to confront the devil in the experience and the way that experience was controlling my life. And it would also give me an opportunity to give voice to all those women who have suffered sexual assault, child molestation, stalking, post-traumatic stress disorder, who've never dealt with it. So as horrible as that was, and as horrible as the whole obvious experience was horrific, I was forced by that woman selling my story to get deeper therapy, to work harder on getting through it, and to find a voice to help others.
Another news anchor I interviewed in 2019, Lester Holt, the anchor of NBC Nightly News. We spoke months after Lester came to Wilmington to cover Hurricane Florence in September of 2018. Now, Lester was on the scene at Mercer Avenue here in the city as firefighters tried to free a family trapped in their home by a fallen tree during the storm. Lester talked about the emotions he witnessed that day and the picture that he took that he still has on his iPhone to this day.
One of the most poignant scenes I've ever witnessed as a reporter, more than almost 40 years as a reporter, was on that street when, in the middle of what we thought was this feverish rescue effort, suddenly we saw the firefighters walk out toward the street, and we knew something was up. At first we thought, well, maybe they've successfully rescued everyone. Instead, they gathered around very close. There were words being exchanged, and then they prayed. And I'd never seen anything quite like that. These firefighters, in the street there. The most of the storm had passed on. Reporters like myself were on the outskirts, but to watch them, some of them on their knees and their arms around each other praying was undoubtedly among, if not the most touching thing I've ever witnessed.
And you talked to Wilmington Fire Chief Buddy Martinette. Here's a man who was on the scene at the Pentagon on 9/11, and he nearly came to tears during your interview. I don't know how difficult that was to watch, but I can only imagine that you really had to struggle to keep your emotions in check while that was playing out in front of you.
Yeah, you do, because we're all out there doing our jobs. They're first responders. This is what they do. We're reporters. This is what we do. But at that moment, of course, intellectually we know they deeply care about what they do. But you saw the toll it takes and how much they invest, not only risking their lives, but how much they risk their emotions. They so desperately wanted to bring all three of those people out of that house alive. I remember the father came out on a stretcher. And again, that gave some hope they would get everyone out. But I went up to the chief there, and I just asked him. I said, what did you tell your guys? And he went on to explain, and what they had, and how hard they tried. But in the end, they were unsuccessful.
Now, later in the year, 9 Wilmington firefighters who responded to that scene at Mercer Avenue agreed to sit down with me and share their memories of that day, that rescue, and the picture seen by people all around the world. Those brave men also shared the emotions that they continue to feel more than a year after the incident.
After Mr. Johnson was extricated from the home, and he was taken by EMS, and we kind of stopped and just had a regrouping, and just kind of brought everybody together. And the Chief Martinette was on scene, our chief of our department. He was there, and he said some words, and everybody kind of came together. The mother and child had not at that point been brought out, and at that time they still couldn't make access to the mother and the child. And it was abundantly clear to me, kind of running that scene, that these guys were not going to leave until they got them out either. That was not even an option. So it was a kind of a regroup, and a prayer was said, and then it's time to get back to work to get them out.
That's a rough thing if you hear what Sal and Eli said, and I think Chief Norwood said, you hear the word defeat a lot, and some people wouldn't think that. Mr. Johnson's walking on the planet today because these guys did an outstanding job. Unfortunate for his wife and child, that their outcome was already decided before we got there.
I think there's no doubt about that.
And that's at the break. That's what I tried to tell the guys, is that what they did was a win. They saved a man's life. He would not be here if it was not what they did. And but you still hear how hard they take on someone that happened before they got there, that they weren't. They still look at that as defeat, because it's a very tough pill to swallow sometimes.
That is still one of the most emotional stories that I have ever done. This past spring, the North Carolina Azalea Festival named Brianna Venskis as the queen for the 2019 event. Now, Brianna was born in Wilmington. Her family moved away, and then she later went to Los Angeles to pursue an acting career. She recently has had recurring roles in some pretty popular TV shows like The Walking Dead and Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Well, during our interview, Brianna took us back to the first time she saw herself on TV as a working actress.
The first thing that I actually saw myself on television was on House, which was on Fox at the time.
Yeah.
And it was House. It was like a critically acclaimed show. It was an incredible cast. I remember turning on Fox and seeing my face pop up, and it was almost this moment of just being like, that's, how am I there if I'm here? But then, I mean, it's something that you study for and train for, and are, you're in the world, so it's going to happen. But it's such a surreal moment to actually see years and years and years and years of your hard work finally pay off. Countless auditions, meeting hundreds and hundreds of people, going to countless meetings, putting in the work, barely getting sleep, waking up to pay your bills just to be able to go out and maybe audition for something. So to kind of have that accumulation, even for just that first role, as small as it was, to have it actually pay off and have it actually happen was just a surreal thing to witness.
You're very strong-willed. I can tell that already. Did you ever come maybe this close to just saying, done?
Oh my God, yeah, every day.
Really?
If I have to be honest, I mean, this business is not for the faint of heart. You, as a creative person, I think it's even harder because you really do pour your heart and soul into everything that you do. And your creativity is so personal that even if I go in for an audition, I'm giving 100% of what I would give to that character on a show. Mm-hmm. So to do that for an audition and then get rejected, you're just, you kind of wake up the next day and you're like, okay, if this is really what I want to do, then I gotta man up and understand that this is, I'm going to have to put up with this on a maybe daily basis. So you have to be stubborn, yes. But I think the more you question whether or not you want something, it really solidifies whether or not you want it.
Now, you've seen Daniel Hargrave on the movie screen. You just didn't know it was Daniel Hargrave. The UNC Wilmington grad is one of the most sought-after stunt performers in the industry. He doubled for Chris Evans as Captain America in several of the Marvel films, including Infinity War. And during his interview, Daniel told us about one of his most memorable scenes during that movie.
It was the Battle of Wakanda and the opening scene where Black Panther and Captain America, they lead the battle charge, and you see them running at superhuman speed. Black Panther and Captain America starts to overtake him, and just knowing that I am not superhuman fast, we decided to concoct a rig, and our rigging stunt riggers, Michael Huggins, Ralph Koch, and Billy Mortz was three of the main guys. They sort of came up with this idea because normally in that situation you would use what's called a magic carpet, which it is on a high-speed winch will pull an actual piece of carpet or a clear piece of Lexan or something, pulling you faster than you can run, and then you just will run on top of that. So it's kind of double speed. And where we were shooting was the old Chattahoochee Horse Equestrian Eventing Center. So we were all through fields and down a hill, and that was not very conducive for the magic carpet. So they designed this rig, and they use what's called a high line. So there's a line about 20 feet in the air spanning about 200 feet from two cranes, and that was used to suspend my weight, and it had about 50% of my weight. I had some weight on my feet, and then there was a high-speed winch with a line that connected to my chest, to my harness, and that was motivating me. We gradually worked into the speed, but at the final filming stage, we were going about 22 miles an hour. So
how difficult was that to keep your balance? I mean, I know it's trying to help you, but it had to be incredibly difficult, number one, to be going that fast, but number two, to maintain your balance.
Yeah, it was pretty difficult. I mean, we had to do some rehearsals. I mean, it's very hard because in that scene, I was actually, I was being Captain America. They put the dots on my face for face replacement. So the biggest thing is to try to not make that, oh gosh, face, I'm going to fall down. So you try to keep somewhat of a face that they can paint his face onto, and also just keeping your balance. Yeah, because as the winch, there was a move, so they would start it. I'd start jogging, then gradually get up to speed. I had about a 20 feet start to get up to speed, and then it would kick in and I'd be going full speed. So if you weren't exactly in the right step or right stride, it could pull you off balance. And that actually happened on about the 7th take. It was running, and I just lost my footing. I tried to overstride, and it pulled me, and I pulled my hamstring. And as I felt my hamstring pop, I kind of took a half stride, and then the winch pulled me down, and I face planted in the grass. I'm getting dragged at 22 miles an hour, face planted. I'm passing all these background artists, and our stunt guys are running, looking at me like, what the heck is going on? And I'm just I'm there enjoying the ride. I'm just getting dragged, trying not to break anything. And it was pretty funny. It was actually probably one of the, more amusing moments of the shoot. Just, here goes Captain America being dragged face first through the mud and muck.
Another favorite performer we interviewed in 2019, Foz of Z1075. Jason Fosdick has hosted that high-energy morning radio show now for more than 15 years. We talked about his career, his generosity, donating his time to many nonprofit agencies and organizations in the city, and how his life changed one day, ironically, by just listening to the radio.
So I was sitting in the car doing financial planning, okay? So I graduated college, sports was over. I did financial planning for about 1.5 years. I didn't like the experience. I loved the job because you could help people. You could inform them on all these different financial products, sell people life insurance, give them products that they really needed.
Right.
That was cool, but I wasn't getting anything out of the job, right? I was sitting in my car going to another kitchen table appointment one night, and I heard a commercial on the radio. Do you want to be in radio? Call the Illinois Center of Broadcasting. And so I called them, took the tour. I signed my check right there on the tour for the tuition because I felt like this is where I belong. And my whole life changed literally in one day at 23 years old, one summer afternoon, taking one tour of the Illinois Center of Broadcasting.
And what was it about it?
I knew this is where I wanted to be. There was electricity in the air. We were doing a little, I sat down with 2 college students that were doing their little internet show, okay? There had no listeners. It wasn't a real show, but it was just the setting of 2 people sitting there talking about whatever's on their mind right there. They had a phone line which went to the other studio, so you had another person calling in. But you got the small experience of, oh, this is what it would be like to be on a morning show. You've got all these people engaging, talking, having fun. I wanted that. I wanted a piece of that. And that's really what, I knew that would be my path to get into radio, and that's what led me there. And then I won a nice award from that school.
Yeah.
The outstanding broadcasting student for the whole school, which was nice, and that gave me a little star on my resume to at least not get it thrown away the first wave. I was a very broke kid trying to bust into radio. So what I was doing was I'd save up enough money to send my demo with a pizza box so they would open it, and at least there would be some, well, this is different than the other 400 tapes that I got in.
That's interesting.
3 pizzas it took, which for a kid who had no money, it was thinking, how long can I play this game? But I tried to do something special to stand out, and that's what it was, a pizza box.
Yeah. BMX rider Ryan Nyquist moved his family to Wilmington in 2018, so they've already been through a couple of hurricanes since they got here. Now, he's won medals at the X Games and won several world championships as a BMX rider, and now he's the head coach for the U.S. Olympic BMX freestyle team, the very first Olympic team that will compete in the 2020 Games in Tokyo. In the fun interview that we had, Ryan told us crashing is a pretty important part of his sport.
One of my biggest assets that I always tell people is like, I'm really good at crashing. I'm amazing at crashing. I'm not, and this is something I will brag about all day long.
The ones I've seen, you are laughing half
the
time.
And some of them are ridiculously fun. Like honestly, the best ones are where you're sliding and you've gotten on your elbow pads and knee pads, you're just sliding like that. It's like, this is incredible. I mean, you would never set out to do that, but like it's happening. And I always say like learning how to crash a trick is just as important as learning how to pull it, because it's going to happen. Like you're going to fall down, but if you know how to react and you know how to like, move your hand or make those split second decisions that put you in a better situation or walk away unscathed, that gives you longevity. It gives you the experience, body awareness, all that stuff. So a lot of these veterans and people that you see that are going to be in the Olympics, have taken their fair of crashes, but they know how to crash. And it's a skill that is like, if you are perfect every single time and you never crash.
What good is that?
When you crash, it's going to be a disaster. Like feet are going to be flying, like gloves are going to pop off. It's just like, you have to know that part of it too. And that's what these riders have, is they have the ability to do these crazy tricks, but also they can crash them and get away.
Wilmington also had a connection to another international sporting event this past year, the Women's World Cup Soccer Championship. UNC Wilmington's senior Sydney Schneider was the starting goalie for the team from Jamaica, the first time that country had qualified a team for the finals. So Sydney had the chance to face off against some of the best players in the world, but she didn't immediately agree to take part.
Well, I first got invited, and I think it was the summer before my junior year, and I wasn't committed to a college yet, and I was worrying about that. Like, junior year, everyone says your most stressful year in high school. You take all your standardized tests, you worry about getting committed. So I was kind of stressed out about that. I was like, I can't miss school. I have to do well in school. It's supposed to be really hard. So I actually said no the first time, and then the next round of the next round of qualifiers came up, and they were like, okay. They asked me again, and
that's when the conversation with Mom
that's
happened.
when the conversation with Mom happened, and she was like, why aren't you gonna go? You're scared. I was like, I don't know. What if I'm not good? What if they don't like me? It's a big deal. I'm playing for a country. It's not just a club. So what if I'm not good enough? And she was like, if you weren't good enough, then they wouldn't have called you in. And just go there and play. You've been doing this your whole time. It doesn't matter who you're playing with, where you're playing. It's just the same thing.
You really had that self-doubt in yourself despite the fact that you had been somewhat successful on the high school level?
Yeah.
How did you overcome it then? What happened that made you feel calm about finally giving it a chance? Was it the conversation with Mom?
She definitely pushed me over the edge to actually say yes. And then getting there, meeting everyone and starting to train with everyone, it just settled my brain. It wasn't overthinking. It was just soccer. You've done this before. You know what to do. So once I got there and I was comfortable, I felt fine.
Speaking of UNC Wilmington athletes, Devontae Kaycock graduated from the school this year and has recently signed a brand new contract with the NBA's Los Angeles Lakers. That's right, he could play with LeBron James at some point this year. I talked to Devontae as his record-setting career was coming to an end at UNCW. And that day he remembered back to his high school days and the coach who helped take his game to an entirely new level.
Coach Brooks, I met him in Alpharetta, and he basically, I'd known him throughout my junior year, and then after I got done with high school at Alpharetta, he said he wanted to work me out, and I didn't have any trainer or anybody, and he's the only one that offered me some type of help that, of course, wasn't charged and nothing like that. So I was like, sure, let's do it. And he broke me down too. He broke me down to we had some crazy workouts, we were in the weight room, straight to the court, stuff like that. And this is after the season. I'm like, what are we doing?
Really?
we got to do all this. He's like, yeah, D, I'm trying to train you for the college. Because he played at Alabama. He was a walk-on at the time. But
so he knew basically what you were going to get and was trying to prep you for it.
Yeah, he's been there, he practices. So he was like, I'm going to get you ready for college. And it was some long nights. It was some crazy days when I was just straight up tired. I'm laying down on the ground just like, yo.
How close did you come? Did you ever come really close to just saying, I'm done?
Oh, it happened one time. It was one time he was working me out. It was crazy. And I'm literally, I feel like I'm about to die. I'm like, he's like, keep pushing. And I'd actually quit. I was just like, I can't do it, coach. I can't do it. And then he sat there for a second and he looked at me like, okay. And then I think I got up. I was like, let's try it again. He was like, hold on, D. You can't quit on me again. This isn't a try it again type stuff. You got to push through no matter what. You can never do this again. And he told me if I ever quit on him again, he's never going to work me out again. And I still hear it to this day. I'm just like, all right, I can't quit. And not even just in the workouts, just with him, it's everything now. Whether it be me doing my regular workouts here or whether it be me doing some of my schoolwork or something like that, if I quit, I'm not going to have another chance. And that's a part of another thing that keeps pushing me as well. knowing like I can't quit, I can't stop, I got to keep pushing. And once I push and keep pushing myself, I'm going to feel a lot better at the end.
Those are just some of the guests we had in this studio for the One-on-One with John Evans podcast in 2019. And if you like what you heard in these little snippets, you can go back and listen to the entire episode. They're all available for free download wherever you enjoy your favorite podcast. Sites like Apple Podcasts, SoundCloud, Spotify, TuneIn, iHeartRadio, and many more. When you're there, will you please subscribe to the One-on-One with John Evans podcast and leave us a rating or a review. The more of those we have, the higher we'll be listed on all of those podcast apps, and the more chance we'll have of bringing in even more new listeners in 2020. I'm John Evans. Thanks for joining us for this and all of the One-on-One with John Evans podcasts we've had in 2019. We'll see you again in 2020.